In the quiet village of Thal, Austria, a boy was born with nothing more than a vision so big, it didn't fit in the landscape that raised him. Arnold Alois Schwarzenegger, son of a strict local police chief, grew up in a small house with no electricity in some rooms, no refrigerator, and definitely no luxury. His family was poor, discipline was tough, and dreaming big wasn't encouraged, but Arnold was different. He didn't want a job, he wanted greatness. From a young age, he was fascinated by strength. The idea that someone could sculpt their body, could become a god among men, had seized him. He found a photograph of Reg Park, the British bodybuilder, who became Hercules in the movies, and right there the dream was planted. Not just muscles, fame, power, America, movies, all of it. But in the cold Austrian winters, none of that felt real. His father wanted him to become a police officer like him. His teachers thought he'd be a good tradesman, but Arnold had already decided he would be the greatest bodybuilder in the world, and then a movie star in America at 15. He picked up his first barbell at 17. He entered his first competition by 18. He was in the Austrian army, but even there, he didn't stop training. In fact, he went AWOL, disappeared without permission just to compete in a bodybuilding competition in Germany. He won, and he got punished. But the message was clear. He would break any rule to become the best. He began training under a mentor, soaking up every ounce of knowledge about bodybuilding, nutrition, and mental focus. Arnold wasn't just lifting weights, he was shaping his destiny. He trained 6 hours a day, sometimes until his body trembled from exhaustion, and all the while he repeated one line to himself: "You can't climb the ladder of success with your hands in your pockets." The world didn't know it yet, but a storm was coming from Austria. By 20, Arnold had become the youngest Mr. Universe in history. His body, massive, defined, almost superhuman, became his ticket out of the old world. He didn't just win, he dominated. But that wasn't enough. He knew that the real stage, the real dream, was in America. He didn't speak fluent English. He had no money, no contacts, no family, but he had something else, unshakable belief. Arnold arrived in the United States in 1968 with just a gym bag and a thick Austrian accent. He enrolled in college, studied business and English at night, and trained during the day. He lived in a small apartment, shared with other bodybuilders, scraping by with odd jobs, even bricklaying. But inside the gym he was a king in the making. Every curl, every squat, every rep, wasn't just for strength, it was for legacy. He set his sights on Mr. Olympia, the highest title in the world of bodybuilding. The reigning champion at the time, Sergio Oliva, was considered unbeatable, but Arnold didn't care about reputations. He cared about results. In 1970, at just 23 years old, Arnold Schwarzenegger won his first Mr. Olympia title, becoming the youngest champion in history. It didn't stop there. He won again, and again, and again, 7 times in total. He transformed bodybuilding from a niche sport into a global phenomenon. He wasn't just lifting weights anymore, he was lifting an entire generation of dreamers. But his journey had only begun. Because the boy from Austria who couldn't speak English properly now wanted to conquer Hollywood. Arnold stood at the edge of a dream once again, this time not in a gym, but in a casting room. The spotlight wasn't on his biceps anymore, but on his accent, his awkward posture, and the strange pronunciation of every English word he tried to say. He was in America, land of opportunity, but here, he was just another muscle man with a thick accent and a name no one could pronounce. Hollywood wasn't impressed. Casting directors looked at him and laughed. "You'll never make it," they said. "You're too big. You sound funny. You're not American." He heard the same thing, again and again. "You'll never be a leading man. You don't fit the mold." But Arnold had heard that voice before in Austria, when people told him he could never be a champion. He had crushed it then, and he was about to crush it now. Every audition was a battlefield. He studied acting. He worked on his accent. He learned to deliver lines, to convey emotion with more than just his muscles. But the rejections kept coming. At one point, an agent flatly told him, "Why don't you just go back to bodybuilding? You'll never make it in this town." But Arnold didn't just want to be in movies. He wanted to be the biggest action star the world had ever seen. Years passed. He appeared in small roles, forgettable films, even comedy sketches where he was just the muscle guy. But behind the scenes, he was observing, learning, preparing. He kept training both body and mind. Then came a spark. 1977, he starred in a bodybuilding documentary called Pumping Iron. It wasn't a massive commercial success, but it did something more powerful. It revealed Arnold's personality to the world. Confident, witty, charismatic, people finally saw beyond the muscles. He was more than just a body, he was a brand. Then came the moment that changed everything. The producers of a bold, violent fantasy action movie were looking for someone who could be believable as a barbarian warrior, a man of mythical strength. They needed someone larger than life. And they found him. Conan the Barbarian, released in 1982, made Arnold a household name. He didn't just play Conan, he became him, raw, primal, powerful. The audience loved it. Hollywood finally took notice. But Arnold wasn't done. Not even close. 1 year later, he got a script that was so out of the box it seemed insane. A dark sci-fi action thriller about a cyborg assassin from the future. Few believed in it. The budget was low. The director, James Cameron, was barely known. The movie, The Terminator. Arnold read the script. It was violent, it was intense. It had barely 50 lines of dialogue, but one of those lines would become iconic forever. I'll be back. The film exploded into pop culture like a nuclear blast. That it didn't just launch a franchise, it launched a legend. Suddenly, Arnold wasn't just a star, he was the star. Every studio wanted him. He brought a new kind of hero to the big screen. Not the clean-cut American ideal, but a fierce, foreign-born powerhouse who spoke less and did more. He became the face of 80s and 90s action films. Commando, Predator, Total Recall, Twins, Kindergarten Cop, True Lies. Every film cemented his dominance in a different way. Whether it was action, sci-fi, or comedy, Arnold delivered. No one saw was how hard he worked behind the scenes. He would rehearse lines for hours, he demanded reshoots if his performance was perfect. He hired coaches to refine his diction. He studied scripts like a businessman reads contracts. Arnold wasn't chasing fame anymore. He was engineering legacy. In the middle of all this, he built an empire, real estate investments, fitness products, a personal brand that was now global. He became one of the highest paid actors in Hollywood history, earning $20 to $30 million per movie. All from a boy who once couldn't afford a fridge. But money was never the goal. Respect was. He made sure that no one would ever say again, "You're too foreign, you're just a bodybuilder." He made sure that people said, "That's Arnold. That's the guy who made it against all odds." Behind the scenes, he became friends with presidents, CEOs, and world leaders. He studied politics, law, economics. He built relationships, always thinking ahead. Because Arnold didn't just want to be a movie star, he wanted to lead. As the 90s turned into the 2000s, Arnold began shifting. He reduced his acting work. He increased his public speaking, charity work, and community projects. And then, one day, in a shocking move, he announced, "I'm running for governor of California." People laughed again, just like before. But Arnold had learned something. In Hollywood, people always laugh right before you prove them wrong. The year was 2003. California was in crisis, economic downturn, rolling blackouts, and political chaos. The people had lost faith in politicians. Trust was at an all-time low, and then a man stepped up. Not a lawyer, not a senator, not a lifetime politician, but a bodybuilder, an immigrant, an action star. Arnold Schwarzenegger stood on the podium and announced, with the same conviction he used to conquer gyms and movie sets, "I will be the governor of California." The media erupted. Late-night shows cracked jokes. Pundits dismissed. Experts said, "This is ridiculous. What does he know about politics?" But Arnold smiled. Because they said the same thing about Hollywood. And about bodybuilding. And about America. He had beaten the odds before. He would do it again. Arnold launched a campaign like no other. Direct, powerful, and full of energy. He didn't promise miracles. He promised work. He stood in town halls. Listened to farmers, small business owners, teachers, firefighters. He connected not as a politician, but as a human who knew how to fight for every inch of success. In a shocking landslide, Arnold Schwarzenegger was elected the 38th governor of California, an immigrant from Austria, now leading the largest state in the United States. His inauguration wasn't about fanfare, it was about resolve. "I didn't come here for power, I came here to serve." The challenges hit him immediately. Budget deficits, political gridlock, environmental crises. California was a battlefield, and Arnold had no time to breathe. But he stepped in like he always had, head on. He worked with both Democrats and Republicans, an outsider trying to unite a broken system. Some loved him, others criticized every move. He cut spending, reformed pension systems, pushed for green, energy and climate change policy. He passed laws to reduce emissions and invest in clean technology long before it was trending. But the media wasn't always kind. They scrutinized his every mistake, mocked his accent again, called him the governator, a joke that started funny but eventually turned into criticism. But Arnold didn't break. He listened. He adjusted. He took responsibility and he kept going. He served 2 full terms. From 2003 to 2011, he left with scars, political wounds, bruised ego, sleepless nights, but also with pride. He had served the people who gave him everything, and he had done it with the same intensity he brought to every arena of life. When his political chapter ended, many expected him to fade away, another celebrity who tried politics and moved on. But Arnold doesn't fade. He evolves. He returned to public life not just as an actor but as a teacher, mentor, and speaker. He launched initiatives to support after-school programs, veteran services, and health campaigns. He funded fitness education, gave speeches on resilience, and told his story not to impress, but to inspire. He opened up about his failures, about his broken marriage, about the cost of ambition, about being flawed and still striving to be better. Arnold became something more powerful than a movie star or politician. He became a symbol of what it means to never give up. He told young people, you can have excuses, or you can have a future, but you can't have both. He reminded immigrants, I came here with nothing but a dream and a gym bag. If I can do it, so can you. He told the broken, your story isn't over. It's just waiting for your comeback. Today, Arnold continues to train, to write, to speak. He still wakes up at 5 a.m., still lifts weights, still leads. He doesn't call himself a legend. He calls himself a worker. Because for him, success was never about being better than others. It was about being better than who he was yesterday, and that more than any title, trophy, or box office hit is what makes him truly great. A child from a small village in Austria, a man who built his own empire, a legend who fought every battle with one belief in his heart. Strength doesn't come from the body, it comes from the will.